When President Trump signed Executive Order 224 in March 2025, making English the official language of the United States, many celebrated it as a long overdue step toward national unity. Supporters argued that one shared language would simplify government, cut costs, and give immigrants a clearer path to integration. This view echoes a familiar stock narrative, that English only is the key to fairness and cohesion. Yet my own lived experiences, as well as research and personal stories from others, tell a different story. I say that English-only policies do not build unity, but instead create barriers. They limit access to essential services, weaken educational opportunities, encourage prejudice, and silence the richness of voices that already make up America. True unity, I argue, comes not from forcing sameness, but from embracing the many languages that shape our lives. I first learned how language can become a barrier when I was a child, standing next to my mother at the post office. She rehearsed her English before speaking to the clerk, but when she finally spoke, the clerk frowned and said, "You need to speak English better." I jumped in to translate, but the damage was done. Her dignity had already been cut down. Executive Order 14224 claims that declaring English official will not ban other languages, but by removing requirements for language access, it shifts the burden onto people like my mother. The Fine Law 2085 analysis makes this clear. Agencies are no longer required to provide translation. This so-called efficiency may save paperwork, but it risks shutting out millions of Americans in hospitals, schools, and courts. That is not inclusion. It is exclusion. Supporters of English-only policies often argue that immersion is the fastest way for students to learn. Arizona's Structured English Immersion, SEI programs, are often cited as a model, but my friend Marisol's story complicates that claim. She had recently moved from Mexico and excelled at math, but because her school forced her into an immersion class focused on drills, she fell behind. "I know the answers, just not in English yet," she told me once, frustrated. Research confirms what her experience showed. Bilingual and dual language programs often outperform English-only ones. The National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine found that bilingual education supports both English growth and overall academic achievement. Rand Corporation researchers reported that students in dual language immersion scored higher in English reading tests than those in English-only tracks. Forcing students into English-only classrooms is not faster. It can actually slow learning and erode confidence. English-only rules do not stop at the classroom door. They follow people into workplaces and public spaces. Journalist Jason Sarkozy-Forfinsky described how restaurant workers in New York were told, "Speak English or you'll be put on dish duty." My uncle faced something similar in a hotel kitchen, where his manager told him, "We're in America. Speak English." Yet, he was already doing everything expected of an American, such as working long hours, paying taxes, and raising children. His only failure was an accent. These examples show how English-only norms give people permission to police others' speech, deciding who does and does not belong. Far from creating unity, such policies breed resentment and exclusion. The damage of English-only extends to children's sense of self-worth. Walt Wolfram explains that students quickly learn to rank voices. Some are labeled correct, and others wrong. When schools enforce only standard English, they reinforce these hierarchies instead of challenging them. Students who speak differently are often placed in lower tracks, regardless of their abilities. This early bias can shape a student's entire educational journey. English-only policies fuel this prejudice, teaching children that their home languages are not just different, but inferior. Rather than building equality, the policies create a two-tier system where some voices are valued and others silenced. Beyond schools and workplaces, English-only policies take an emotional toll. Amy Tan's essay, Mother Tongue, describes how her mother's English was dismissed as broken, even though it carried love and meaning. I see my own family in her words. My mother could argue with bill collectors and solve complex problems in English, but strangers still judged her as less capable. Gloria Anzaldúa calls this effort to tame non-English voices a form of cultural control. Ken Liu's story, The Paper Menagerie, shows how rejecting a mother's language leads to regret and loss, while Kaveh Akbar finds beauty and identity in childhood prayers spoken outside of English. These works remind us that language is not just about clarity. It is about identity, memory, and belonging. Stripping people of their languages strips them of themselves. Supporters often point to polls showing most Americans support official English. But democracy is not only about majority rule, it is also about protecting the rights of minorities. A majority opinion does not erase the real harm done when translation disappears in a courtroom or when a student is punished for speaking their home language. The stock narrative says that English only reflects the will of the people. I say that the true test of democracy is whether it protects the vulnerable, not just the comfortable majority. The stock story of English only claims that one language will unite America, make government more efficient, and help immigrants succeed. But my story, and the stories of many others, show otherwise. English-only policies shut people out of services, hold back students, encourage prejudice, and silence voices. Research shows that bilingual education works better. Personal stories reveal the humiliation and loss that come with enforced conformity. And lived experience makes clear that real unity does not come from sameness, but from embracing diversity. A tapestry is not strong because it is made of one thread. It is strong because it weaves many together. If we want a United States that truly reflects its name, we must value all the voices within it. Only then will we find the unity that English-only policies promise but cannot deliver.